Hey everyone, welcome to another session of A Day in the Life of a BA. My name is Kunal and I'm a volunteer at IIBA Ireland and I'll be your host today. At IIBA Ireland, our mission is to support professionals by sharing knowledge, common terminology, and practice insights into the work of business analysts across different industries. This series gives you the chance to hear directly from business professionals about the typical day, their processes, the tools, and the techniques they use, and the challenges and successes they encounter in their industry. So each month, we invite a BA professional to share their personal journey, highlighting the approaches they take, the technologies they rely on, and real world examples from their work. So, whether you're considering a career in business analysis, if you're already working alongside BAs, or you're simply looking to deepen your understanding of the role, today's session is designed to give you clarity, confidence, and a shared language for working effectively with BAs. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Promise, who works as a BA in the construction industry. Promise will be walking us through their own day in the life and sharing practical insights from their experience. Throughout the session, please feel free to turn on your camera for interactions and submit your questions in the Q&A tab, and then we'll go through them at the end of Promise's presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Promise.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Kunal. I really appreciate the way you've actually given me very lovely titles. Can you hear me, everyone? Please feel free to just give reactions. I don't want to feel like I'm talking to myself. It's an honor to be here. Yes, thank you. I can see your thumbs up. See your thumbs up. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to see if there's a thing we could do, like a poll size that just tells me how people are doing today. I'm trying to ease up the tension a bit. I don't want it to seem like I'm just here on a typical one-on-one day. I'm just here talking. I'd like to ask us a few questions to know how our day has been. It's middle of the week. It's just Tuesday. Um, Anyone kind enough want to feel free to just drop something on the chat box. Let me see how we are doing. You can just use one word. You can just say relax, exhausting, tired, exciting. Keep it coming. Okay. Thank you. I'm saying relax. That's nice. Yeah. Anyone else? I'm tired at the moment. That's by the way. AJ, amazing. Easy going, Aaron. Thank you very much. I'm so pleased to be here. And yeah, I've had a very long day myself. I've been in and out of uh, the entire work life. Last week I was in Plymouth and I'm supposed to be in Sheffield today, but I had to work from home. So I can imagine how busy it is. So yes, I'm going to share my slides now. And I thought it was nice that I am going to verbally do a short introduction of what we're going to talk about, like Kuna has said. Then we dive straight into it. Yep. So in three, two, one, you see my very funny looking slides. Please let me know when you see them. They're not the best. I'm trying to get there. Let me try and switch to presentation mode so we can have a perfect view of it. I think it's best I just use multiple screens. Now, can you see my screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Good to
very
go.
well. Let me go. All right, so I want to know if I'm on full screen mode now.
Yeah,
Okay, let me know if we can see my screen.
we lost your screen if you're going to reshare it.
Oh, my bad. I'm just going to pick it to the other monitor.
Yep. No.
All right. All right. So I believe we can see my screen, guys.
Yeah, we can.
All right. How are we doing with time? Keep me on the go. All right. So a day in the life of a BA in construction sector. Kuna has given you a short profile of myself, which is very, very succinct. I currently work with Royal Mail Group, and I work within the process automation space, working within delivery and on the likes. So yeah, construction is one of the experiences that I've built over time, and I'm happy to share my experiences within that sector with you all. If we scroll down to my next slide, where I will talk about what the next bit of my presentation will be. So yeah, high level, I'm going to quickly give us a high level overview of what the expectations are when it comes to the construction sector and types of projects you'd most likely find. And most importantly, the stakeholders that you'd find when you're dealing within the construction sector. Then, as a BA, what is your RACI? You know your RACI. What are you responsible for? What are you actionable for? And the likes. Then you also want to look at what exactly are the technologies that are very prominent within when it comes to construction sector. We also want to look at some peculiar challenges that you'd face as a BA or professional that works within the construction sector. These are the bits that I think you would know. As a BA, I know you all know your asanas, your tools and techniques. I will leave you to that. Then what are you looking at? There are definite prerogatives that are coming up within the market now that are changing the dynamics of the ways of work. We want to talk about ESG reporting. We want to talk about change adoption when it comes to these emerging technologies and AI. I would close with that. Then allow us to ask us lovely questions because I will not be the only one answering. I can see very wonderful, experienced colleagues here, and I'm very happy to learn from you as well. I'm not a perfectionist. I believe every single day we continue sharing our knowledge and we get better in all of these. So if we look at the construction landscape, it is something that is very, very very, very peculiar to labor and also something that is very fast paced as well. I describe it as something that is very contract driven, one that really focuses on different types of work, which I have described in a very short 6 different bullet points here. I said most of the construction projects are going to be heavy duty. You want to think of different types of road projects, commercial properties, standard properties that has to do with government related or private capital infrastructure projects, which are heavy duty and large sum of money. When it comes to even the numbers, the UK itself has a construction output of over 215 billion as at 2024, according to statistics. So it's a sector that really involves lots of resources when it comes to finances. In terms of project delivery, there are different types of projects you'd face. Coming from the experience that I have, the contract terms determines how the heavy investment is going to be like. You want to look at is it a fixed term contract like you'd face? Let's say when we get to point A, assume you're building a road project that is 10,000 miles. You have, when you get to 1 mile, 2 mile, this is the amount dedicated to the project. Then you get to 10 mile, this is the amount dedicated to the project. It could be renewed on those payment type of terms to the company who's really funding or executing the project. So those type of execution could be based on those types of criteria. The company can say, when you get to this particular level of the project, we'll pay you installments. When you get to the other level, we'll continue the other payments. So it takes very meticulous level of project delivery for you to manage projects in construction. Because if you don't manage your resources, inflation could cut deep into your resources and your materials. Then you want to also look at how revenue is recognized there. So it's going to be on work completion. You don't expect that the company who's executing the project is going to receive revenue from the company who's sponsoring the project when the jobs are not completed. So it could be that, okay, at the point of completion of point A, you would have realized revenue from the resources that you've spent already on the projects. That's something you'd find with construction projects. Then they have strong audit criteria, internal policy when it comes to health and safety, um, internal policy when it comes to life insurance claims, as regards to different types of accidents. It is very, very important when it comes to the sector. These are random checks, that routine checks and standard checks that has to be made by either the internal audit company of the audit contracting company of the construction company you're working with, or the external audit company that also has to do their regular check-ins to know how well the business is doing. Another way, of course, is going to be the payment of this execution of these jobs. So we'd have what we call advance payment guarantee, where the sponsoring company pays you an advance payment for a job that you've not started, right? On the basis that you would start to a certain extent, or you have a case where they tell you your execution of the project is on a milestone basis. So when you reach milestone, let's say we get into 10 miles for a 100 miles project, you get an advance payment based on each milestone that you cover. That would be the different ways of payment you'd find within the construction sector. Of course, it is very volatile as a sector. The high cost of materials because of the wear and tear of inflation and resources. One naira today is not the same thing tomorrow. And construction projects are very high project and long-term projects that could last for 10 years, 50 years, 25 years. And these are one of the things that are very, very common when it comes to the sector. The construction sector is very well driven with execution. We say we are fast-paced professionals as business analysts and project professionals alike. When it comes to the construction sector, the people you're working with, the project managers on sites, the delivery managers on sites, care less about the paperwork. What they want to see is action. They're more concerned about the operational work. They care less about the paperwork. But it is your role as an analyst, as a project professional, to ensure that there is a balance between how these whole process are aligned together. So yeah, that's the high level overview of the construction business. Now, when it comes to the types of construction project and delivery models that you'd find, I did mention when I did the high level introduction that you'd find different types of projects. You could find residential projects when your course is a residential property, infrastructure projects when it comes to road, bridges, utilities, industrial power plants alike. These are heavy duty projects, as you can imagine, millions and millions of pounds. In terms of the delivery model, it could be a design and build model where you're designing the infrastructure from an architectural perspective to executing the building itself to bring it to life. Or maybe you're having a subcontracting engagement where a contractor that is already handling a construction project subcontracts some part of it to you as another party. These are some other ways. Then commercial arrangements could be maybe heavy duty project like estate type of projects where you have measurement contracts that you have to have proper lump sum contracts in that type of arrangement. So these are high level methods when it comes to the delivery of construction work. And you're probably wondering what exactly am I going to be doing as a BA within this type of project? Well, think of Laura Bradenburg's 8-step model about what you do in a typical project, and you start seeing it as the project goes. As I go ahead with sharing my bit here. So if we go to the next part or the construction projects, which is a BA as a construction project, is obviously going to be the part where I want us to look at the construction project life cycle. So this is very interesting because as a BA, you have the software development life cycle, right? As a project professional, you also have the whole project life cycle that you use. Think of it as the way you would work on a product lifecycle or any type of software development lifecycle as a construction project. So the first stage does not, is more like think of the pre-construction and bid slash tender stage as your project discovery stage as a BA, right? So just think of it that way. When you're really trying to get the bid together, you want to understand what exactly the project wants to be. Otherwise, for this case, what happens in the pre-construction and the bid stage is you have different contracting companies bidding to the sponsor that they have the capacity and the capability to execute this project. That is what happens before in the pre-construction and tender stage. You then also want to look at the part where you now look at procurement, at the point where you're now sourcing the heavy duty materials. These materials, some of them are going to be international materials that they have to be imported from other countries, some internal as well. And some companies may not even have the expertise to even execute them. They also have to bring in experts for this type of projects. That's what happened within that stage. Then you now want to go into design, where you want to have the engineers do the very technical stuffs, bringing all the architectural diagrams to life, planning how the whole bit is going to be brought to life, the drawing, defining how the project is going to be. Just like you'd have a BA drawing wireframes, drawing Figma design boards to just show their stakeholders that this is what the likelihood of what the end product that's going to be like. Think of this stage as that type of stage. Then you want to now go into real construction stage, which is the stage where you as a BA sometimes would want to look at and visit there so that you have a real taste of what you're really analyzing, the requirements you're gathering, how is it really functioning, how is the really day-to-day work of these construction professionals, are they really bringing it to life? That's where you go to the site and how you see all these things work. Then you now get to the point where you're commissioning this project. The project is over, we've tested all the installations. It's more like you put in everything meets the standards. QA has tested, they have quality control. Same way you have QAs in software development lifecycle, we have them in the project, in the construction project as well, that also envisage every risk and also confirm that these risks have been ascertained to standard and that they are good enough for them to go ahead. You want to then look at the point where we now say, okay, you're handing over to the sponsor, and you're probably now going to the point where you now look at every final documentation in terms of ownership certificate, all the legalities have now been transferred. Lastly, you now look at the point where you would say the routine operational assessments. The same way you have EAs working in a project where you'd have to have support execution and delivery when the project goes live, right? That's the same way you'd have that type of contractual arrangements, support to the organization, whatever supporting the sponsoring company, to ensure that every utilities, every item that has been installed in this construction project works fine and everything is really perfect. That's what you'd find in this stage. So this is the construction project life cycle. I've mirrored it in such a way that as an analyst, we can think of it as a typical bread and butter, which is the SDLC software development life cycle. Yeah, and I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I think this is the very dicey part where you want to then imagine as a business analyst professional how you want to work with stakeholders that are more all about execution, right? And these are stakeholders that really have their interest is just to see work done in the slightest perfect, not just the slightest way, the most perfect way as possible. Because for them, as professionals, I mean site engineers, quantity surveyors, for them, precision is 100%, has to be 100%. And they really do not, they don't mind really ignoring documentation just to ensure that they get the work done in the best ways. Those are the type of stakeholders you'd have to work with within the construction space. The project manager doesn't really want to know the details. He wants to know, do we have the right materials? Do we have the right resources? What is the current inventory of all the items that we have? Have they properly? He really doesn't know if all items are properly being recorded at the same time. What he wants to know, do I have enough resources, materials to build what I want to build at that time? So you'd want to see how you as a BA work with this type of stakeholders. Then you want to go down to a store executive who is more concerned about keeping every single inventory to their own custody and reporting it as much as they can in any feasible way to ensure safety, compliance, and audits. Then you'd have a procurement manager that, of course, very pays attention to ensuring that the whole construction team gets the right item as at when due. You'd also look at maybe a commercial director that is managing your spot. Usually, this could be your sponsor in this regard. And these are some of the bits that you want to really work with as internal stakeholders. Then external stakeholders would be maybe you're working on the third party clients, you're working with an ERP implementation consultant, the vendors, subcontractors, and the regulators, depending on whatever area you're working with. And of course, auditors to ensure that the books are correct as at when due. Um, if we go to the real part where you and I, as analysts, professionals, what do we really want to do and how do we do it? As business analysts, this is your RACI. This is where you want to be responsible. This is where you want to be actionable. And one of the things you'd find in this space generally is you want to balance execution with documentation and processes. And to do this, it is very, very important that you show how you do this all through the project lifecycle entirely. You're going to imagine as a BA, what exactly is process, the process for procurement workflows, for instance. You're probably going to be in a project where you're assigned to look at reviewing or rewriting or redrawing a process improvement workflow for procurement process for these heavy duty materials or all of the bits that we've seen so far in my previous slides. You are going to probably have that time to work with all the different stakeholders in ensuring that there is total compliance, there's clarity in that area. What is the change order management when it comes to requests being coming from a client or a subcontractor? These are areas you could probably also do. And what is the onboarding process when you have a new contractor or the third party engagements within the same construction project that you're working on? These are some of the different processes you could manage as a BA. You would work within the interference of ensuring clarity between these project professionals that are on site and yourself right there within the business as a whole. If you look at it, you then want to now go into the point where it could be a system implementation rollout. One, I'll show us a few peculiar IT systems that would find when it comes to construction sector. One time I saw a project where we were having to migrate from one solution to another because we are moving from an on-premises to a cloud that should be able to have the capacity, the heavy-duty contracts that the organization had gotten at the time. These are the type of projects you probably see when you want to bring this ERP rollout. Not all enterprise resource planning solutions can handle the type of data that construction project has. So it is very, very important that we sort of also look at this particular area. And to do this, you'd face conversations around data, heavy data loading. So it is important that as BAs, having an overview knowledge of data architecture is also very, very good in this area. And this could also be a dashboard solution. You're looking at maybe a BIM 360 type of solution or a Sage 250 Evolution Cloud, a solution at this type of way. In terms of data governance, like I mentioned, there are going to be project naming conventions. A lot. You'd find this a lot. You'd see maybe a KSR to A1, every single document, every single data trail, everything has to be followed according to some level of standards. And these has to be audited from time to time. And they also have to be compliant, ISO compliant as well. These are some of the bits you'd also find. In terms of regulation, we've seen a lot of things when it comes to environmental controls, right? It's very, very important that as BAs, you want to probably work on a project that is very keen on health and safety reports. It could also be maybe you're tracking the compliance of the project according to regulation of the state that they're working in or the country that they are. So these are some of the areas as well that you could also be yeah. So I'm halfway now. I don't know if you want to maybe take the comments before I continue. Kunal, because
Yeah. So there is one question. If you want to read that out, you can take that.
yes.
Yeah. So essentially, Ajay has asked a question from Promise. Who are your major stakeholders, and do you have to go on site on project location at any duration?
So yes, I will answer that now. So now we can just be in the same and keep the energy in the room together. Um, I once managed a project where I had about 9 different construction sites that is all over the country. And imagine having to travel different locations. It's a bit hectic, which is where introducing robust systems that can actually give you a very robust oversight of different locations. However, it is advisable that working within this project is advised that you also work in some time to have a taste of what it is. You have to go in with your health and safety jar. You have to compulsorily put on a safety boot if you have to go into a construction site, a high vest, and also the helmet. There are different helmets. Before you go in, the site manager is going to run you through all the different processes and the procedures where the exit points are for emergencies. They're going to run you through all these before you get into the site. And when you want to go in there, it depends on the project you're working on. If you're probably working on an inventory rollout, you most likely would have maybe worked with the supply chain manager, narrowed down to also working with the warehouse manager, to also the storekeeper. And to get through this space when you go into the site to also witness this yourself, you probably may also have to relate with the current health and safety manager who has to induct you before you walk into the site as well. So yeah, so these are some of the stakeholders, and these are some of the ways that you could do that. But it's not compulsory. Just once in a while, just for you to have a good taste of what work is on sites. So yeah, I believe that's fine. I will now go into the other bit of my presentation. So yeah, I did mention we have very good technologies these days that are coming into the space. Um, at the time I did work within the space, I was working with Sage, and we were working on partnership with moving into Autodesk BIM 360 at the time. And you'd also find a SAP. And the reason why you're seeing these big names are because construction projects are very heavy, very, very heavy. And we've seen how heavy they are. It is very, very important that they have solid systems where that can actually manage the load that comes with it, and also change that comes with construction projects. You could also use, as a project manager, you could be using an Oracle Primavera to help you manage this whole process, the whole project by stages as well. And there are other brands, other names of high technology systems and solutions that we really have when it comes to construction. But these are notable names that I believe we may want to also look at So it is usually encouraged that when you come in, right, with of course, your BA knowledge, your BA caps, um, certain knowledge of working within this area may be required as you go ahead with the project. It could be probably you're probably there for maybe you're working on an ERP rollout or change adoption that they've just gone through a level of change and they want to really increase adoption. There has to be some level of alignment when it comes to how the current system interacts with another, and do they have a manual that helps current stakeholders learn these solutions, because you have to drill down to other to their level as well. You could also have a case where you are finding a solution that has to sort of connect with the already existing systems that the business has within their own organization. This is something that also could happen, and this would allow different area of work as a BA to work within this space. Very fast-paced space, very fast-paced, requires you to really get things really, really fast and adapt as fast as possible. And considering the fact that we now have conversations on environmental safety and governance, you'd see cases about reports that you want to ensure that organizations are keeping in tabs to this level of standards in reporting the level of their ESG and all of it. So yeah, so this is one way. So if you're keen on it, you'd also want to make a research as well to see which area you want to focus on. There are different solutions. These are just primary level. If you deep dive, you'd see there is a SAP for Sahana. That is, there's also a SAP for finance processes. There is a different SAP level, so you don't necessarily have to use every bit of it, depending on the knowledge and the projects that you work. My friends in consulting would also tell you very well. I'm sure we'll have some of them here. You would find out that they sort of just work in line with where their client demands are. So if you're working on a client project that is focused on supply chain, they most likely try to just equip their knowledge base on the supply chain model of these ERPs, right? If you're going to work on a finance model that is going to be more finance processes, it is also very advisable sort of have a very good understanding of it. When you get into the space, it makes it very, very easy for you to then adapt slowly into it. That's what you'd find with every single ERP. It's so big for you to say you want to know everything. You need to pick a part, work with it, depending on the project, of course. And this is one of the things why you see people work in contracting and consulting are always going to be very, very open to learning every time, because for every project that they experience, they sort of really get a chance to learn a different type of module depending on the project they're working on. Just today, they're probably working within an inventory system and they're probably learning a supply chain module, working with that all through the project ends. Then tomorrow, they're probably in an HR module or a finance module that has to be working with the financial processes of the organization. You see how the diverse change can be very huge. So the most important thing, like I would always say, is the BA cap always has to come first. You man in the loop. You are the guy that makes that key decision of really being on the stance of getting things done. So being very self-aware and ready to execute at all times makes it very, very easy for you. Yeah. Let's go to this bit here. It's a lot, right? Because when an organization or a sector is so huge, right, it requires robust systems. With robust systems comes challenges as well, right? And the construction sector is not a saint when it comes to challenges, right? And it's very, very important that as BA, we try to just get our bit done. Um, if not, we could probably be the reason why we have an abandoned project. Maybe an abandoned road project or an abandoned housing, commercial housing project, or any of it that would face. So let me start with fragmented supply chain. You have multiple subcontractors and vendors where there is no standardized process as regards to where the organization actually uses checks and processes, protocols to onboard contractors. You could probably be a BA within that space where your role is to sort of redefine that whole process it takes to get contractors, right? You work in a space where that is not really, they don't really have it. Every contractor is a win. Again, you could probably be in that space too. That's what you find because every single contractor, every single company out there wants to do business. And they also want to sort of really pitch their way to sell. It is where the regulators come in. The regulators have some certain criterias, certain standards that the contractor has to have. And it also comes to the business itself. They should also have a level of certain criteria about how they manage this type of contractors. So you face that. Your role is to bring clarity, right? This is where you want to bring clarity into the whole conversation. That challenge is something that's going to happen. It could probably be inventory loss or scattered inventory. No one base system of capturing inventory affecting their whole supply chain process. That could be one of the challenges you're facing in this type of a project. You want to now look at margin pressures because of how the project is, how huge the project is. Imagine if you have a project where you've already had 10 years, 5 years already going, then you have a possible way where the project now gets to the point where inflation has eaten deep into this cost. As inflation has eaten deep into this cost, causing the possible ways of maybe the project delivery team on site had a rework that they made a mistake for. Who bears the cost? Is it the contracting company or the business company? Questions are going to be asked. These answers have to be answered, right? So these are some of the ways and the things that we want to really look at when it comes to this type of work. Then you also want to look at the regulatory burden when it comes to safety, compliance, and inspection on a timely basis from time to time. How does the safety process from the project really matter? How is it being documented over time so that we can ensure that the organization's processes and documents are up to date when it comes to the standards expected of them? Would also find old legacy tools. It's always been a challenge. An organization has been working with legacy systems for over 10, 15 years, and now the business has expanded. They can no longer handle the current system that they have, can no longer handle the high pressure demands workload that they have as a capacity. They are integrating from one system to another system just to make do with what they have. You'd find that a lot. Another thing you could also find is manual processes. There was one time I got to an Excel-based reporting tool that one of the clients that we were working with had at the time, and they were introducing one of the robust ERPs at the time. These are some of the challenges you'd face as a BA, and this is also not going to come in easy. You don't also expect the organization to accept this at ease. Neither do you also expect the stakeholders that you'd work with within this regard as well to also accept that. That also leads us to an area that we want to look at, which is change, the readiness for change, and what is your way to really help them support the whole change narrative? What's your change impact assessment telling you? What is the aftermath of change that you've also designed to support these rollout of whatever solution or change that you're driving as a BA along the whole light of this reality that comes within the construction space. So these are going to be more of these challenges that you face, and it's your role, like we said again, is to bring clarity. So bring clarity by getting this problem solved. is going to be one of the best ways you'd find that you do your role as a BA within this type of projects. Let me go to the next slide. Yeah, so I want to give us enough time for questions. So I'm going to quickly just look at the terms of the statistical numbers that we have here. I did a short research to tell us how much we would find when it comes to the type of markets you look at when it comes to the construction sector. And you want to look at how heavy it was when it comes to the market size of construction. This is a 2024 data that I researched about how well the market is growing. It's one of the largest markets globally in the US. The market size globally says it's around 11.39 trillion. That's at 2024, with a compounded annual growth rate showing us that it could increase by 5.9%, which means there are going to be opportunities. Even if we've had a report from the UK saying that there's a decline in employment recently, the continuous infrastructure possibility that comes with construction is going to allow for multiple opportunities within that space. Our friends in market research are going to tell you better when they put the economics of this together, and they would make sense out of it. Then you can see how much the sector employs. It employs over 280.4 million jobs globally. And if we go to the UK, it's close to around 280.4 million jobs when it comes to it, to that generally. And which is one of the reasons that I think that we want to really adapt that as a business. In terms of how we want to look at what they really bring to the global market, you see buildings and construction account for around 32% of global energy use and 34% of global CO2 emissions. As much as there's a good, there's also going to be the demand for regulation. You can see emissions around that space. There's need for us to also look at the ESG parts, which is making sustainability a critical driver and a risk factor, right, for a win-win part of it. And the key areas of road drivers where construction is going to keep being a very, very demand sector is going to be urbanization, aging infrastructure that require change, of course, energy transition. We've seen the whole way from we transition from typical petrol, diesel to also having battery. We've also seen digital transformation projects where you and I as analysts also work. And these are all the areas that we can actually think of when it comes to the construction sector as well. Then it's a massive project economically and also very labor intensive. It's also very, very sustainability sensitive, and it's where we as BA really have to come in. The risk, the compliance, the cost control measures, and the digital transformation bits, just to ensure that we stay very, very compliant in all of it generally. So yeah, thank you. I believe you have learned a thing or two about the construction sector, and I'm pretty sure I'm doing well on time here. And Kunal, I will be very, very happy to take lots of questions if we have so many. If we don't have many, I believe we have enjoyed how much detail I've shared about what we know when it comes to the construction sector. And I'll be happy to hear her thoughts. So please feel free to share with me what your questions are, Kunal. Please go for it.
Perfect. Yeah. So there's a couple of them in the chat, right? I'll get to that first. So Naeem has asked, which do you find more challenging to deal with, internal or external stakeholders?
I think with stakeholders, you're going to find the external stakeholders very, very clear. The expectations are well defined, and it makes it very, very easy for you as a BA and as a project professional to easily navigate that. You know, there are standard reports and standard processes and procedures that you'd have to sort of report health and safety, ISO. You also were probably working within the finance project, and there's certain level that they have a quarterly reporting period. They also have maybe an annual revenue report cycle that the business undergoes. It's a lot easier because it is a scanner, right? There's clarity there, but it's not the same thing with internal stakeholders, right? Um, Internal stakeholders are going to want to pull their muscles on you as a BA, reminding you that they've been in the organization way before you, 10, 15 years, 25 years, and you can't tell them that they should just change a system or process that they've been using for over 25 or 20 years since before you even came into the business. So I think it's a thing where you as a BA have to bring your BA's top skills to light to really know and to really not just know your stakeholders, but exercise stakeholders management at its very best, right? So when you balance that, you would easily navigate the hiccup that you'd face internally so that you can support the external stakeholders resourcefully and efficiently generally. So yeah, it's a win-win one.
Right. Correct. And there's one more promise. Do you think you need a sort of a strong industry or domain knowledge to get into this sector as a business analyst?
So this question comes every year and there. If you follow BA Live, um, there is a podcast that I did recently with Hando Jacob on domain knowledge or BA skills. Part one has come out just lasting 2 weeks ago, and some of these questions you asked when it comes to domain knowledge were answered. So it's actually it's more of a two-way thing, right? It's more of a two-way thing when it comes to what domain knowledge should be. Organizations want you as a professional to come in and get things done, right? So as a BA, even if you do not have domain knowledge within the construction sector, the stakeholders you want to work with would expect you to come straight into the project and learn as much as you can in a very short time to get things going. So that entry barrier is not necessarily there. But the question is going to be a question that you have to answer in 6 months' time, in 1 year time, is how has the project survived in your presence? How has your presence really supported the stakeholders to achieve the project goal and milestones that were defined at the very start of the project? So if you want to know if sort of domain knowledge should be a blocker for you to get into the construction sector, my answer is no. The construction sector is not really heavily guided. What they want to see is your understanding of what it means, the entire project lifecycle as a BA, and how to support the different areas as well as much as possible. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Promise. Sorry, I also just had a question, right? In terms of your projects in this particular industry, then what sort of KPIs or performance metrics do you use generally?
Oh yes, you'd find lots of key performance indicators depending on the area of the project you're working with. When I recall the project that I worked on last was more of an enterprise resource planning solution where I had fragmented inventory processes. And my recommendation was to sort of handle and lead the entire transition from a legacy inventory keeping solution to a cloud-based enterprise resource solution. In that type of case, your key performance indicator is going to be what is the current management of inventory assets, prior dates to now? what is the wastage that the business has been able to manage because of the reporting that you have. When it comes to current inventory, what exactly is the cost of goods sold as regards to inventory, right? And what is the wastage that you'd find? And you want to show how your solution that you're recommending helps solve that problem. It could be a different project where you're working within uh, a procurement process. A key performance indicator within that way is what criteria have you established to filter all the different procurement contractors that have applied to join the business? How has your role as a BA been able to manage that workload and ensure that they go through all the standard checks, all the standard procedures needed of the organization, what they want to do. So yeah, it is what word do I use? It is relative when it comes to key performance indicators.
Perfect. I think, yeah, that was sort of a very helpful answer. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so I think we
Sorry,
want to.
Promise. Yeah, there's one last more. Maybe in the interest of time, we'll just take this, right? How do you sort of manage scope changes?
Oh yes. So the way the construction sector manages scope changes is not out of the league of the typical product life cycle that you'd find when you're working in a typical software development life cycle. So the construction life cycle itself has certain process and standards for changes to really manage, for changes to be managed. If they've set a timeline that this project should be executed and between 10 months period of time or 2 year period, there's a likelihood that it's going to either roll over beyond that. So these scope changes. Your role as a BA is to collaborate closely with the project team in this particular regard. And in managing scope changes like this, there are certain process that the compliance and the audit committee have already defined when it comes to making adjustments to delivery timelines of a project. Your role would be that has this thing adjustment of this timeline or change that is going to kind of cost that delivery timeline, has it gone through the regular change? Has it been added to a risk already? You want to review that on a regular time with the project team, that this is where the current timeline stands. And if there is a need to escalate it to the commercial director or the project manager who then supports that initiative of relating to the commercial director at the list. There could be a case where everybody is aware there are certain forces that are beyond their control. You want to look at inflation or rain, wear and tear, season. These are always going to happen. I can tell you when it comes to scope creep within the construction sector, it's 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 not a could have, it's a must have. The most important thing here is, have we laid risk foundations to manage the these are really ways to really navigate that. I want to believe I've answered your question. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Right. On that note, Promise, I don't see any other questions right side. Really like to thank you for your valuable insights. I think we've all learned something new today. And thank you everyone who has participated to make this discussion more engaging. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Um,
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's an absolute honor to be in your midst. And thank you very much for the questions and the engagements. You guys really rock.
Perfect. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
we can sort of give everyone their 3 minutes back and hope everyone has a nice day ahead. Thank you.
So very well. Do enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.